hour early. We are live. And the reason for that is because Ms. Brooklyn Dicent is just too busy to be here on the regular scheduled time. She is killing it as a motivational speaker. She is out there. She is not just motivational, she's hilarious, and she also brings science and the peer-reviewed, actual backed up sort of evidence-based research to her talks. And we're going to get into all of that. But just a quick rundown, Brooklyn is the Chief Happiness Officer. She's a happiness mindset expert and stand-up comedian. She's worked with companies such as Microsoft, Bob's Red Mill, and Yale University to help create positive workplace culture. A highly sought-after speaker in the area of happiness at work. Brooklyn she infuses comedy with brain science. She teaches how to tap into your personal reservoir of joy and create a happier life regardless of external circumstances. And here's the cool thing. So oftentimes, as Brooklyn knows by now, I do a lot of this by the seat of my pants. And I was like, oh, I gotta throw her intro in here real quick. And I start reading this. I'm like, and apparently you're on like this year-long project documenting the effects of joy and happiness in life. I never knew that. So we're definitely going to have to get into that. Brooklyn has appeared on ABC, NBC, CBS, dozens of podcasts, now the WaterCooler, talking about positive mindset. And she is a critical component of health and wellness. Brooklyn, thank you for being here. It's really such an honor to have you.
Oh, I am so excited to be here with you today. You don't even know. So excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you for making room in your incredibly busy schedule. So that's not a joke. That really is. But I was just ribbing her a little bit because she had to push this till 11. So, all right, Brooklyn, you know the drill. We're going to do the 6 and 60. This can get serious, all right? So 6 questions, 60 seconds to answer them all. By the way, if you are viewing us live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, or anywhere else, please put in a comment, say hello, answer the 6 and 60 for yourself as well if you'd like. Just let us know that you're out there, especially broadcasting at an earlier time. We want to know that we're actually here live. But without further ado, Brooklyn, here are your 6 and 60.
Okay.
What is one thing that you would like to see stick around after this pandemic?
Q codes, whatever that is, in restaurants. Like I need that to stay forever.
I don't even know what that is. When you're feeling stressed or down, what do you do to reset and pull yourself out of it?
Music.
Nice. What kind of music?
Anything. Hip hop, show tunes, anything that gets me lifted up. Usually Eminem, I don't know why.
All right, and that didn't count as a question. Give us one notable trait of your favorite boss of all time.
Caring.
I recently saw a video of you doing something insane. What is the most insane thing that you've ever done? Is it that?
Yeah, bungee jumping.
Nice. That's crazy. You guys have to check out her video. She posted on LinkedIn. As a comedian, how often do people approach you and tell you to make them laugh or tell them a joke?
All the time.
And how frustrating is that?
Very.
Okay, and last question. Can you tell us a joke? All right, that's 7 in 60 seconds. That was nice. There were some part B questions there, and you rocked it. And most people don't. So that was really, really impressive. You are on it. So what is the cube? You know how I eat at restaurants now. Grubhub.
No, sorry, the QR code. So like the QR code. So you know what when you
so you scan them. Gotcha.
Yeah, you scan the thing. So you get ready to pay, you scan the thing. I love the fact too that they know split the bill because when you're in a table of like 5 people and everybody ordered everything and you had bread, I'm like,
right.
Why am I paying for your wine? I don't get it.
Right. So I have seen the QR codes, and like QR codes have had this huge comeback. Like they sort of came out, nobody knew they existed, and I think COVID's been really good for them. So before we get started talking, we're going to be talking about happiness, and Brooklyn, I thought it would make sense to give a quick disclaimer that if you are in a state where it's very difficult for you to access the emotion or mood of happiness, then we highly recommend that you talk to somebody if you're not already. But certainly don't we don't want anybody to watch this and feel discouraged as if it's something that they're chasing and they just can't catch. So if you are feeling that you are in that category where it's just you're struggling to find happiness and the things we talk about today don't help, then definitely seeking professional help, somebody to talk to, would be highly recommended. Would you agree with that? Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely agree with that. Yeah, and so I'll leave that disclaimer there, but for sure. Yes, absolutely. I do too, actually. I'm like,
Chief
mental
Happiness
health is
Officer.
great.
Officer. Yeah, and Brooklyn was saying that she wanted to take this out because it stretches all the way into my territory. And I was not being territorial, but you graciously offered to take it out. Like, no, you got to leave that job title in.
Yes.
So, so all right, let's start from the beginning. First of all, who are you? Where the heck did you come from? How did you know happiness was the thing? I know that I did not know that you existed until maybe a month ago when I started seeing you blow up everywhere. And I'm like, where did this person come from? And it turned out that you recently have gone full time with your speaking thing. And so that's why I had never seen you before, because you're so dynamic and you seem to be everywhere. Tell us about your journey.
But first of all, it has been absolutely explosive. I went on my own as of January 1st of this year. And by the time of this taping, we're what, 1920? We're 1922. That's how good we were. We're in the past, in the future.
Yeah, look at our technology. We even have QR codes at the end of this.
Forget cards. We have QR codes. Can you imagine? Anyway, so this year I decided to go live on my own, and decided that it was time to take off and really do this thing, because I found that, especially through COVID, that people were just struggling, right? They were struggling with happiness and so on and so forth, and it was my topic. And so you asked me, hey, where I come from, how this whole thing start. And so essentially, backstory is I've always had a corporate job and everything else as a trainer, as a corporate trainer, as a sales trainer, and learning and development person. And I thought, okay, cool, this is awesome. And then one day I was walking down the street in Portland, Maine, and I happened upon a comedy club. I had never been to a comedy club. I don't think I've ever seen comedy live. And so I went in, and the show was going to start, and I sat there, and I don't drink a whole lot anyway, and I was like, oh, I don't want any drinks. There's like 2 drink minimum. Can I have water? And so I'm like, all right, 2 bottles of Bassa water. And so of Ross Water. And so I was watching these guys do comedy. I'm like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? Like, you get to make a living at making people laugh. This is great. It was part of sort of my nature, my DNA, to make people laugh. And I've been doing this since I was a kid. Yeah. And I didn't think there was a career in it. And so I took a class, and within 8 weeks, I learned how to be a stand-up comedian. And I learned some incredible tools as a comic that I thought, how, especially because I was a corporate trainer, I'm like, how do I translate this to the corporate environment, right? How do I take the tools and the things that I'm learning here and actually help people find laughter? Because laughter truly heals so much. It heals so much. And in fact, as a testimonial, a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to Yale University, and the person who brought me in to do the talk, to these people, there were 300 people showed up to the Zoom call, right? We were there for like an hour, and she emailed me later and she said, okay, you won't believe this. I actually was gonna come onto the call and be off camera because I was feeling sick. I mean, I've been sick all week, literally. She goes, I just want to support. I was gonna be off camera. But you asked people to get on camera and to turn the cameras on. And the entire hour was so thrilling, so joyful, so like my mood shifted. I actually got better. I had been feeling better ever since that call because I laughed. And the thing is that for me, after learning comedy, was that I also learned improv. And so blending, trusting my instincts, trusting where my brain is gonna go, allowed me to just see life from a different perspective. So again, I started teaching. So then I took it seriously. I'm like, I'm going to teach, corporate America how to basically tap into the power of humor, and the fact that humor heals, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, this is fun. But every time I would approach HR people, they were like, well, but is it clean comedy? I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to have to tell people, like, My job is clean. Like, what kind of job is
Right.
that? So I just basically transformed that from humor in the workplace to happiness at work.
Right.
And that transition, just that simple word, immediately made an impact. The fact that somebody responds to the word happiness already, like, oh my God, I already feel better. It also led me to believe that words have energy.
Right.
And I'm like, wow. So the things we say, the words we use have energy and absolutely positively will make an impact in how I feel. And so I just said, okay, I'm just gonna take this and figure out what to do with it, because I know that everybody who's around me, the moment they engage with me, they just feel better. I'm
Right.
like, what would happen if I actually taught this skill in corporate America, which is what I started to do. And then as of this year, I've been doing it for the last few years, sort of on the sidelines, and I'm like, oh, this is just too good. This is just too
Yeah.
good because of how people feel and what they're telling me. I thought I might as well take it all the way.
So it's an amazing story. And you left me with a lot of different questions and directions we could go with this. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you brought up humor and that reaction of I don't know, yeah, that humor has never seemed to be more dangerous right now, and it always seemed dangerous at work.
Yeah.
Just with the increasing amount of diversity and intersectionality, and also like our ability to empathize and understand other people's perspectives. It's almost become this, people call cancel culture and things like that. There is this element where there's this risk of alienating somebody on one end, or if you want to look at it from the other end, of me being canceled because of something that I said
Yeah.
that was humorous. So do you encourage people to bring humor to work, and how do you do that in a safe way now?
That's such a great question, David. And let me start by saying that not all humor is created equal,
Yeah.
right? And not all humor is created equal. And so for me, what I look for and what I think about in terms of my own humor is my intention with it, right? And the intentionality of the origin of that humor is important. And so some people may say, okay, so like we can get a whole diatribe conversation around what is humor and where does it come from and blah blah. There's a bunch of research done on this and what it is and where does it come from. But say for example, I would say particularly at work, innocent humor. Oh, cat videos, or joking, joshing with peers in a fun way. And here's what I usually say: depending on how the humor makes you feel when you walk away from it, it's significant to what happened to the other person. And what I mean by that is how the other person felt. Are they laughing with you, or are they like, okay, that wasn't funny? And if someone
Right.
says, okay, that wasn't funny, it wasn't funny. And so what I usually say is, don't try to be a comedian. Don't try to be,
Right.
funny for the sake of humor. But the fact is that you see things from a perspective that may be interesting or humorous to you, and you share that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think what happens is people, depending on, again, on the intention. If the intention is to harm, then that is not humor, right? But the intention is to bring fun and laughter and joy to the moment that everybody can share. We all get it. We all understand what it is when everybody's in sync with you. Like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Right.
Um, and you have, and what my one of my comedy coaches and teachers, a phenomenal comedy coach, Steve Rosenfield. I'm going to give a plug here. He has a book called basically Everything You Need to Know About Comedy, or some comedy guidebook. I'm doing a terrible disservice to the title of this book. The point is, he talks about joyful communication. Joyful communication. So when you are using humor for joyful communication, it's very different than I'm using humor to poke holes at somebody or to put somebody down, right? And then when we deal with comedians today and what's going on today is when it's politicized and all the business, you already know that you're going to go down a path that is very dangerous, and that is left for those people. But that's their skill, that's their ability. They have a
Right.
way to take a very dangerous commentary and find the humor. It's an incredible skill that takes time and talent to develop. And so that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about that every single day in your life, you can, look at something and see the humor and see the joy in it, and then you want to share it. So for me, it's about seeing joy and something fun or funny or interesting or your point of view and sharing it in a way that brings joy to other people.
Yes. Yeah. And if you're watching us live, I want you to chime in and let us know if you feel sort of authentic, the ability to be authentic with your humor at work, or whether you do hold back a little bit with and humor sliding into just general authenticity and joy, which I love the term joy, because that's really joy
Absolutely.
is contagious, and it's a it's just a good feeling that's contagious, as opposed to I could be happy and you're not happy, but joy seems more contagious in a way. But I wanted to circle back because I told you set me off in multiple directions, so I'm going to take both. The other direction was you had talked about how from a very early age you just had this humor about you and this happiness about you, and it was contagious, right? And other people feel it. You then went off to comedy and to learn improv, and you talk about these skills. Where is the breakdown between skill and just that natural ability, or something like sort of already baked in to who you are? Because you definitely have that X factor. How do you go in and teach buttoned up grumpy bosses how to be happy and create a happier workplace? Is that trainable?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because the question becomes, can you train somebody to be humorous? Can you train somebody to be, but again, humor and happiness is two different things. But let me go back to the bit about, like, from my childhood. And when I discovered, I kind of figured out something is magically here. First of all, so as you listen to this, you guys listen to elements that may be in your life. I had funny people around me.
Mhm.
Okay. My mom was funny. My dad was funny. My uncle, I had one of my uncles, and we all have that uncle. She's just a comedian. It's just the things he comes up with, right?
Yeah.
I just couldn't. My little brain was just being blown out every time he said something. And I'm like, what? Because it was his observations. He to me was the true Seinfeld. His observations were just, it blew me away. And one of them that I remember, I'll never forget. We were driving one time in a car. He looks out the window and he's like, look at all those lampposts. I wish I was on that, because that seems like it's going faster, right? I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, he's right. And I'm like, he goes, look how fast those lampposts are going. We're not going that fast. Look at the lampposts. He was like the Charlie Chaplin of my time, right? And so I was just humored by that. So from that sort of that experience of having other people around me, so the first lesson is surround yourself with funny,
Yeah.
happy people. If you want to be happier, be around happy people. If you want to be miserable, get married. The point is that I was around happy people and humorous people that had interesting observations. So one day, my mom was, I don't know, busy in the kitchen doing something, and I pipe in and I go, "Hey, mom." No, I'm Latina, by the way. Uh, and so I said, "Mom, why is it that Latino radio announcers are so, like, passionate and whatever else in Spanish, and then all of a sudden the English word is so perfect? Damas y caballeros, bienvenidos al show de las 12. Aquí estamos producido por American Airlines." And then she lost it. And she goes, "What? How did you know this?" And then the other conversation I had, I'm like, "No, why is it that when usually a man and woman are arguing, you usually only hear the woman?" And she's like, where do you get these things? So
That's
I
funny.
just started to observe my life and go, well, that's interesting.
Right.
And that's where I started realizing my life is really interesting. And I was seeing it from an interesting perspective. And so I just started to tap into the natural ability to be funny, but I was surrounded by funny people. It was, I noticed that it's about, you found humor in observation. And I just carried that on. I didn't realize that I was learning these tools. I just was experiencing it. And then as I was growing older, it just carried on, and I was just naturally noticing things. And still to today, and there's different kinds of humor and kinds of comedy, but mine is very observational and intuitive in the moment, which is a whole another skill. But the key is happiness and finding joy is literally a state of mind.
Yeah.
So right, so I already tap into my own personal humor, but then it's also my state of mind. Now I tell you, there's mornings I wake up, I'm not happy. I'm like, so, sometimes you wake up like, oh my God, you guys did it again. Like, again? Yes,
Right.
again, today. You did it yesterday, we're going to do it today again. And really, it's my state of mind. And I tap into, okay, get it, sort of go into yourself and get mindful around what's happening today, why today matters, the joy of today. And it just all of a sudden starts to bubble up, because happiness is a state of mind. Right? It's a state of mind. And you don't necessarily always have to be in a state of mind. You can tap back into it, remind yourself. Gratitude is a phenomenal tool to remind yourself of good things, which is why they say, be grateful for things, but also write them down, because when you remember things that happened that were fun or interesting or brought you joy, it'll bring you joy again when you think about them, when you remember them.
Yeah.
So there are some distinct nuances between happiness and humor, but really happiness is a state of mind, and humor is how I perceive the world, right? Sort of my skill of perceiving the world through humor. And some of the questions I ask myself is, this is interesting. This is gonna be terrible. Like I can't remember if I told you the story of the time where I literally got into a car accident, and the car accident was not an issue. It was how I responded to it. And then we literally, myself and the driver, both were laughing at the situation. It was hilarious. I ruined a beautiful car. And the driver of the other car was sad for me because of how I ruined my car. And and it was a Friday night, and we're like, bro, this sucks for dates right now. Like this is not good. You know what I mean? But it's the perspective, and when you train your brain to find the joy, find the happiness, find the humor, it's a skill literally through practice.
Yeah.
So next lesson here is that it's a skill that you practice, because we're wired actually for negativity, meaning we're wired to see the challenges. We're wired to see what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with things, because we're wired to try to stay safe. We're wired to try to survive. So we're always scanning our environments for danger. Well, as a natural happiness and humorous person, you're like, oh, this is interesting. All right, if you're in a forest and there's a bear,
right?
Well, one of us can win. So who's it going to be, right?
Right. It's that negativity bias, right? But and I want to ask you specifically about that, because you brought it up a couple different times about why now. But first, I wanted to tell you that my humor is a little bit twisted. There's nothing I like more than awkward situations, and therefore I just accidentally create them everywhere I go. So I've lost a doctor over my sense of humor, laughing at the wrong time, because there's just something about the guy leaning in to listen to the stethoscope on your heart. So he's like this close to my face, asking me questions that I couldn't stop giggling. And next time I showed up at the office, I was seeing a different doctor. It was weird, but true story. But you're talking about this negativity bias, and if you're in an accident, is it the right time to be laughing or not? You might piss off the driver of the other car if you find it so funny, right? I've been in situations, it wasn't me, but a cousin of mine started cracking up at his grandfather's funeral just because it was the least appropriate time to do it. So then he couldn't stop. Like there's times when it's less appropriate. And what would you say to somebody who says, because on one hand, you're saying you saw this as the time when people needed more of this. But if you think of are you familiar with like Maslow's hierarchy of needs? And people in the chat, people need to have their basic needs met before their safety needs, their basic needs, their social needs, and then you can get to the higher order needs. Is there an argument, and do you hear people make it, like, yeah, we'd love to focus on happiness once we can stop focusing on survival?
That is so true. Okay, so there's been studies around what are the happiest cultures on the planet, and supposedly we are. The Latinos are some of the happiest people in the world. And the research dictates that the reason why that's happening, why people in South America and other, kind of impoverished countries are happy, is because they cherish the small things. Mm. When you cherish the small things, the fact that you still have your kids around you, the fact that you have, elderly around you, the joy of playing, right? And there's an amazing TED Talk of these clowns that went into, literally this band of clowns that went into Bosnia and some war-torn countries to try to bring literally laughter and joy to children. And the impact, and look, this just gives me goosebumps, the impact of finding laughter or something to laugh about or to find joy and play, right? In the moment, despite what's happening, it gives the brain a break. It gives it gives a brain a break to think about, or to at least not focus on the challenges that are happening, and be able to feel like, okay, there is possibility and resilience.
Yeah.
So, right. So the key thing about what happiness does, and again, happiness is a state of mind, and I can shift my brain to look at the terrible, or I can say, okay, what's, like in that accident, for example, nobody died, right? Vanity, my car was, was messed up, but it's fixable, right?
Right.
So when you look at the hierarchy of what's going on, it's okay. It's also the intention, like I said before. If your intention is to bring joy, you will find it, right? And you don't have to necessarily be funny. You can actually just bring joy by bringing a smile to someone's face.
Yeah.
One time I literally was walking, and I can't stand Vegas. It's one of I just don't like it. But had to be at a conference in Vegas. You already know where I'm going. It's just why. But anyway,
Right.
every hotel you have to go through the through the casinos,
Of
and I'm
course.
like, it's terrible, and I couldn't stand it. It was driving me nuts, and so I wasn't happy. I'm like, this is just annoying. And this, by the time, by the way, the time where it's not before COVID, so no masks. Everybody's face in the morning sound, it was just terrible, right? People, right? This is how they walk. I'm like, you're in Vegas, like the happiest, the happiest place for adults in the world. And then I said, I want to do an experiment. Every person I walk by this morning, every person, I'm just gonna crack a smile and say good morning. And all of a sudden, I started doing that, and within seconds, the blooming face cracked open and smiled, and you can tell their body, they got straighter. They felt, hey, good morning. Oh, I hope you didn't lose too much, right? It's like, no, only my soul. All right, good. So what I mean? It's like it's like the moment that you recognize that it's small things that
Yeah.
that can shift how you're feeling, it's all you need, right? You don't need to do some grand gesture. It's thinking about the small ways in which you can find some joy in the moment to shift your mood, to help you literally just give your brain a break from what's happening. And particularly right now in COVID, I mean, literally I get calls and emails, and people were, sending me even text messages like, oh my God, can you literally tell me a joke? Can you make me laugh? And so on. And so I started making TikTok videos and doing things to bring joy to people. But I'm like, wow, if I didn't have the reservoir or skill to do this already, this would be very difficult. So I can
Yeah.
completely understand where people have been challenged mentally by what's happening and what has happened in the aftermath of it. But it's in finding joy in the small things of life that literally bring you joy. And by the way, what brings you joy doesn't necessarily have to bring me joy. It's just you.
Yeah.
And so what I say to
Yeah.
people is,
Bungee jumping does not bring me joy. So that's
no, I wouldn't recommend it. I just would not recommend it to most people. And that's an example of me trying to go after the boundaries of fear. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But one of the key things again is the next lesson is that find things that bring you joy personally, right? And it doesn't have to be very big. You just be like, oh man, I just love to listen to a particular piece of music. I find that music. You asked me in the opening questions
Yeah.
around what's the thing that sort of gets me excited. It's music has an instant way to shift mood. And once you can shift your mood, it gives your brain a break from whatever's happening, and it builds some resiliency, and it builds an ability to just shift and actually feel better. So music does actually heal as well. It's a fast track to that, no pun intended. It's a fast track to feeling better, but it's a habit, right? Happiness is a habit that you actually develop, and happiness is a habit that you want to develop, just like any other skill, any other ability, so that you can be resilient in life based on what's happening in your life. And again, it doesn't have to be to go, make other people laugh. It just doesn't make you happy. Does it make
Right.
you laugh? Does it bring you joy? Because then when you're happy, you're going to make a difference in other people, right? Because of what you say or how
Yeah.
you approach the situation. And that's the shift you want, the shift that happens in the moment for you.
And that social dynamic is really important, especially when we're talking about in the within the concept of work, right? That social piece, like rubbing off on each other, is really important. I have a thing. One of my favorite things when I travel is to run. If I'm speaking out of town, like I always explore the town through
Yeah.
running, right? I know it doesn't look like that because my other second favorite thing to do when I'm out of town speaking is to eat. So it balances out, or maybe doesn't balance out. But anyway, so I always go out running. And one of the things that I've always loved about running is to surprise people by saying hi and with a big smile as I'm running, because a lot of runners that keep their head down and don't do that and don't interact. And I'm here in Baltimore, Maryland, and I do that, and I always get a smile and a hi back, or a vast majority of the time. I'm not trying to call out Boston, but if somebody wants to defend them, who's watching right now, or wants to reply on the rewatch, Boston, the one city that I did that, and every single person, it was like, hi, and they would like clutch their purse. It was like I was gonna mug them or something. It was weird. So, but that type of stuff happens. Sometimes the person does smile back, like me running everywhere else in the world. You in Vegas of all places, right? What happens
Yeah.
when you have a Boston situation? What happens when you make the effort at work and the person doesn't reciprocate? Where do you go from there? Where does my happiness lie? If I'm trying to impact the workplace, how do I
Yeah.
ensure that I'm not impacted by other people's negativity while I'm trying to impact them with my positivity?
Oh my gosh, what a great question! And a few things pop up right away. Number one is that if nobody smiles back at you, it's a game, right? So you collect 50 points if they don't smile back or whatever, right? You collect points. That's just a great question because there are times when it doesn't land. Like, listen, every comedian bombs, right? Every time, and I would call it bombing, right? Oh, you know what? Too soon, right? That doesn't work, right? You're
Right.
running at this lady who knows what her experience is, right? And so she's responding. All you see in people is the response of how they think. Has nothing to do with you. It's how
Hmm.
they think. And so, as a comedian, even as a speaker, when I'm in front of an audience, and trust in Zoom, it is. Imagine doing a happiness talk or whatever, and everybody is looking at me with resting business face. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm like,
Love it.
what? And so I have to push through that and go. You know what? It's not really about sort of how I see them because they may just be processing, right? And have you ever seen people processing?
Yes.
They're right. It's like they're if you're happy, nobody's told your face. And so you know what? And so I'm not going to worry too much about that. What I will say is that it's how you personally feel. Because it may not resonate for somebody in the moment. Your style, your humor may not resonate for that person. It's okay, but trust, it may have made an impact. Now, the thing about happiness is that I want to be clear. Happiness and joy is not outside of you. And so some people say, well, I will be
Mhm.
happy when, right? I'll be happy when I have a job. I'll have this particular car, or I'm happy when I have this particular person in my life. Happiness is not outside of you. Okay. Success is not outside of you. It's really within you. And so, and I know it sounds so Pollyanna, but honestly, it's really about the fact that it's a state of mind within me, and I first become happy and then get those things.
Yeah.
So people say, "Oh, I'll be happy when I'm successful." No, be happy
Right.
first, and then you will be successful because it generates it, right?
Yeah.
And so again, happiness is it's a way of thinking, is a way of framing things, and it's a habit that you develop over time by literally being resilient, noticing what's happening around you. Now, if it doesn't land for other people, just like a comedian, go, I need to work on that. I need to keep working
Right.
on that particular joke, or I need to keep working on that humor. The other thing too for us that I learned in comedy is around timing, right? So knowing when the
Mhm.
time is opportune. I could be at a funeral, or honestly, like I personally wish people would just hire me for funerals. I think if you want to have a great time, like just it's the best thing ever because I doubt the person in the casket is going to be happy about watching you all just be miserable. It's like, oh my
Right.
god, but let's have a party because and there's a woman who wrote a book about how to actually have a great time at a funeral because it's celebrating life, right? It's really
Yeah.
the celebration of this person's life, but it's how we view it. So again, back to your question, how do I deal with when my humor or my happiness or my positivity doesn't land with somebody? Don't worry about it. Just if it makes you feel good, it improved your life. It may have touched that. It may take a while, right? It takes a second to kind of for that person to kind of warm up to it. But I don't take it personally because you know what? If I'm consistent, they'll come back. They'll come around. But positivity is a state of mind. It's a way of being that allows you to be a better person for yourself. Because again, if I'm thinking in a positive way, everything that I do will resonate with people, even if it doesn't resonate in the moment. It will over time.
Right. Yeah. And I love that approach to it, that you just have to choose your audience and timing and not let it reflect back on your own mood. And I think that probably is a muscle that needs to be worked over time. You need to toughen up a little bit in order to prevent that from happening. But so I talk a lot about toxic positivity, right?
Hmm.
And when I do this, it seems like almost every speech I'll have people who will either come up to me or comment in like the whatever testimonials or whatever. They will comment and say, Thank you for calling that out. I never had a word for it before. That's exactly what my boss does, et cetera, or Nancy in accounting or whatever, where it's like, actually, it's never anybody in accounting. It's always somebody in HR. But where they're so positive and they tell you to look on the bright side and therefore devalue the range of emotions that people have and the fact that life isn't always perfect and so what it does is it tends to alienate that person who came to you with their trouble. But then I always have somebody who wants to come up and argue about toxic positivity not being a thing. And I don't want to put people in a box, but it is always the preschool teacher in the room. You know, that preschool teacher sort of person, like you missed your calling as a preschool teacher. It's always that person who needs to dote on people. And there's this need for everybody to be happy all the time. Can you talk to that? And is there a time and a place for happiness to, I mean, you just said, let's be happier at funerals. So maybe you'll disagree with me on this, but,
No,
but how do you gauge that?
yeah, that's such a great question. These are great questions. You're good at you should be a podcaster. Look, so here's the thing. The first thought that comes to mind too is if you haven't already, you must watch Pixar's animated film Inside Out.
Yeah.
Inside Out, right? If you watch Inside Out, first of all, I recommend to everybody as a class assignment, you must watch this film. I've watched it now 4 or 5 times. And the interesting thing is about one of the first of all, it's all about our emotions. And by the way, this film was very well researched and worked. The Pixar people worked with neuropsychologists for this film, which is why it makes such a strong connection to me personally. Um, and because it talks about the emotions and how the emotions sort of play out in your brain. So this whole control system in the brain has all these different emotions, anger, sadness, and so on. And the main character, his name is Joy. Her name is Joy, right? She's always joyful. And the other character that makes a big deal in this film is sadness. And so sadness is blue. And I think is it Phyllis? I forget her last name, the actress who plays it, but does a phenomenal job at just being home. I'm like, oh my god, it's terrible. No, I can't do this. I can't. And Joy's like, but it's possible. And she always tries to lift her, and there's no lifting up Joy, no lifting up of sadness.
Yeah.
Until there's later in the film, you see that in order for, and I don't want to give it away, but in order for progress to happen, both emotions need space. Both emotions need to be expressed. Actually, all emotions, but especially sadness and joy. It is not about always being happy, 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 because it doesn't allow us to recognize the challenges that are happening. It's sort of like you turn a blind eye. You don't want to turn a blind eye to things that are happening in your life that are challenging. There's no need for it.
Yeah.
You want to understand it. You want to dissect it. You want to understand where you are and not be afraid of it. So here's what I say around sort of happiness and joy. It is not, you can't be happy or joy without feeling some sadness and some downtime, right? It's gonna happen. We all have it. I have it every month. But the point is that it's a female thing. I'm sorry. And by the way, I think it's a mammal thing because I see even pets have challenges every month. So here's the thing: it's not that I'm going to not pay attention or ignore when things do not feel well, right? Like, you had a hard breakup, or you had something challenging happen in your life, or you had bad news, right? It's not like, I'm going to be happy about this bad news. Like, no, that's not psychologically healthy, right? It's not healthy. You want to look at the situations that are happening. If you're down, you're in fact, depressing is holding down emotion. That's what depression all the times is about, is you holding down emotion, not allowing some of the emotion to come through, and examine it. But I don't have to live in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I do not have to stay stuck in it. And trust, I literally ended a relationship not too long ago because this is how this person was. I just had to kind of still be in it and revel in it. I'm like, I get it, but I don't want to say you don't have to feel it, but I need a way forward. And the way forward to the light is, well, looking at the situation and saying, well, all right, this is not that great, but what's the lesson here? What can I learn? What do I need to do differently? What was my part in it? What can I do differently to make this better in the future? Right? And start moving forward, because if you stay stuck in that negative emotion or the sad place, you cannot literally move forward with, I would say, facility or as fast as you might want to. It takes longer, right? So in my mind, I'm like, why am I gonna sort of wallow in misery for a long time when it doesn't serve me? There is a purpose, and there is a purpose for things that happen, how we feel, but they're just emotions. And once we understand that emotions, for example, in terms of our how we feel, it's as Joe Dispenza says, if you're familiar with his work, is the language of the body, right? Emotions, the language of the body. The body's telling you, right, physically, like, oh, I don't, this, I just want to crawl in bed and just curl up and just put the covers over my head and just put out the world.
Right.
And you know what? Sometimes, David, we got to do that.
Yeah.
And I've
It's
done
a
it.
process.
I've been in the middle of my day, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just not feeling it right now. I just right now I'm just like not feeling it. And you notice it, I'm not feeling it. And so I'm like, you know what? I just need to go on my bed and curl up and just. And I tell you, I've had those thoughts recently. I just want to. And all of a sudden I'm like, but things won't get done if you do, right? It's like,
Right.
oh, okay, right. But I allow space for that moment of feeling how I feel to allow it to be. It's just an emotion, and it will pass. It will literally pass through me. It will move through as soon as I just allow it. But then what happens is it's almost like a red flag. Your brain is like, you gotta pay attention to this, and so you start to feel bad or feel sad. I'm like, all right, so what's going on? What's happening? I started to talk internal dialogue, and I always say talking to yourself is not a problem, just don't answer. So right, it's responding like, what? How you feel today? Well, I don't know how I'm feeling today. You know, I mean, which I kind of do anyway. But the point is, I allow that moment to happen, and it will pass. But it's my thoughts, and my thoughts, it literally is the language of your mind. And I have to recognize what are the thoughts I'm having that's causing this feeling. So I literally, and I have two whiteboards in my office. And when it's consistently like I'm constantly feeling a particular way that is not that great, and it's not that not just joyful, but it's not energetic, and I'm not pushing through
Right.
life. I write down the thoughts that I'm having that is causing that feeling. And I just
Yes.
literally write down the thoughts, because as I write down the thoughts, I realize, oh, these thoughts are not good. Like, oh,
Yeah.
who do you think you are? You're never gonna make it. Nobody's gonna listen to this. COVID is too hard. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
whatever the thoughts are, I write them out. I'm like, there. That's the software. That's a program I need to change. I'm like, look, stop. And
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta tell those voices, you little sit down, right? Like, not today, Jesus, not
Right.
today, right? Because it doesn't allow you to move forward in the things you got to move forward in. But what I say is this, and this is another lesson: is allow yourself to feel the feelings when they're happening. It's okay.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to, if you're feeling sad about something, you need to feel the emotion. Let it, because it needs to push through. And in fact, that's what dreams are about. When you have a dream and you're like, oh my gosh, I broke up with this person and I'm still dreaming about them. There's nothing got to call them, so don't pick up the phone. Don't call them, right? It's your subconscious mind trying to push through the emotion to release some of that emotion because you're processing. You're
Yeah.
processing those thoughts. Allow yourself to process, right? And then, okay, the shift is, what's my lesson here? What should I do differently? Okay, what do I need? And I self-soothe. Like, what do I need right now? You know what? I need to call a friend. Literally, dial a friend, call somebody that makes you laugh.
Yeah.
Put on some happy music just to make you shift, and notice what happens when you start to shift that mood and that energy. You start to feel better. Like my friend did at Yale. She's like, I was sick and I started to feel better, and my body shifted and changed. And I've been feeling better ever since. Because
Right.
we
Right.
we feel right, we go through whatever, and then we can push through it when we notice how we're feeling and notice the thoughts that you're having, and then just shift one of those elements, right? It's one of those levers.
Yeah.
Your thoughts or your mood, your emotion can change to help you feel better. And the only reason I want to do that is so I can move past and forward from the situation.
Yeah. And I think you're dead on with like identifying what it is, because I find oftentimes negative like moods seem to be caused by amorphous problems. Like it's this big cloud and you don't identify the actual things, or you don't give yourself enough time to live in it and sort of dissect it and allow yourself space. So I'm Jewish, and not necessarily the happiest people in the world, but arguably the funniest. So
I honestly always say I wish I would have been Jewish. I would have been an amazing comedian. I would have been famous.
That's so funny. So in Jewish tradition, when somebody dies, we have Shiva, which is 7 days after somebody dies, you are supposed to stay in the house and not locked down away from people, by the way. You're supposed to have the doors open and people are supposed to come in all the time and comfort you and talk to you, but you're forced to sort of live in it for 7 days, which is the last thing you want to do. And I think when people are left to their own devices often, they're like, no, I'm going back to work tomorrow. And the question is that healthy? As opposed to sort of, living in it for a little bit, and then there is that end where now you're getting up and now you go back out into the world now that you were able to have some time to process. So I love everything that you're saying.
You know what?
Yeah.
So, I was sorry, you're absolutely right. Now, I remember as a kid, again, I don't know where this is coming from. I would, break up with a little, whatever, person I was seeing in the fourth grade. And one day I had a thought. I was sad about it. I'm like, I have till Tuesday at 9 o'clock to feel this way. And then at Tuesday,
Wow.
9 o'clock, it's over. And Tuesday,
Very
9 o'clock,
wise.
I'm done. Right? Somehow I just knew, like, let me just allow this to be. And Shiva is one of those things where you kind of have to be in that space and allow it to be and experience it, because it's an emotion. It's part of life, right? You can't have happiness and joy without the other side, right? With the sadness and so on. But they coexist, and that's the thing about what I love about this film is that you learn that it actually has to coexist together. One helps the other. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah. I love it. I love everything that you've shared with us today. But we've got to start wrapping this up because you've got to go into a virtual keynote that you're giving where somebody's actually going to pay you to give all this information. They should have just logged in here, but suckers. But whatever. We won't tell them. We won't tell them. But I do want to make sure that people reach out to you and connect with you. And by the way, if you're watching this on the restream, because we went an hour early, technical difficulties, and because I suck at everything that has to do with the computer, it looked like we were live on Facebook, but it doesn't look like we were necessarily live on other platforms. I don't know. If we were, shame on you people on those other platforms for not chiming in. But we are. People should please show Brooklyn some love and ask your questions, and we want to hear your comments and personal stories. Where's the most awkward place you've had a good laugh before, whether it was a car accident or a funeral or with your doctor's face 2 inches from yours? We want to hear about that. But you've got to connect with Brooklyn. There's so much value here in so many ways, even if it's just sending her an email and asking her to tell you a joke. So the best ways to do that would be to take out your phone and hover right over her QR code, and that will take you to all the things. I think all your social media and your website. Is there any other way that you'd like people to connect with you?
No, those are great. LinkedIn usually is the best. Send me a note on LinkedIn. And by the way, you just hit me up on LinkedIn or any social media. Tell me you found me here. Tell me, hey, I was, at the water cooler, getting cooled out, and that's how I saw you. It's really important.
Yeah, we'll get the commission on that. So make sure.
Yes.
You heard her here. She just said yes. So,
yes.
So Brooklyn, last thing, what do you have any homework for us? Anything that we can do over the next couple weeks to sort of shift our own mindset and shift our own mood a little bit?
Yeah. Here's what I would say. Give yourself permission to play. Permission to play. Have fun. Okay. Somehow Chris Rocks usually comes through me. So have fun. Don't worry about what people say. Just do what you gotta do. If it's happy for you, it's happy for you. Who cares about everybody else? I have no idea why he always comes through.
How do we just go through that whole thing without me knowing you did impressions? This entire thing could have been different.
That's right.
That'll be part 2. I love that.
And somehow it just came through one day. And I'm like, does that sound like Chris Rock to y'all? I'm like, yeah, it does. He just sounds like an old grumpy man. So give yourself permission to play, you guys. Give yourself permission to play. Play all day. It's okay. Take a break. Just give yourself permission. This is super important because earlier we talked about sort of how it could be dangerous to be human. It takes courage. It takes courage to actually just decide to just allow humor to happen, allow joy to happen, allow yourself to play, give yourself permission to play. I will say that I wish it was mine. I wish I built these, but in Amazon there's a permission slip You get an actually permission slip. I'll show you here a little bit.
What
Yeah,
is
there's a
that?
permission
Oh,
slip.
it looked like you were holding up an old-fashioned TV guide or something.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, no, a permission slip, and it has you're officially permitted to, and it has all kinds of fun things. Play hooky, speak the truth, have cereal for dinner. Like
I love
just
that.
like that's it, exactly it. Have cereal for dinner. I don't know, eat blow pops, whatever. That's just super fun. But permission to play. And with that, since we have a few minutes, I'm gonna have you play right now, and I think I just froze a little bit. Let's see if I can see. Yep, there you go.
Uh-oh.
This comes from
The
this
happiness
little
advantage.
yeah. This comes from a game called Happiness in a Box. I wish again.
Is that Anchor? Like you wrote the happiness advantage or something? That's like his smiley face, unless it's somebody else's also.
Oh yeah, no, it's just because Smiley Face. He doesn't have a copyright on
Smileys on happiness.
happiness. So forget him. Anyway, but I'm gonna have you when you tell me what I'm gonna have you. I'm gonna shuffle the cards, and whenever you're ready, you tell me to stop it. This is a happiness bit for you.
Okay,
So
so
tell me when you're ready.
a speaker, a comedian, and a magician. Stop.
Okay, good. Here we go. Okay, watch this card. Okay, hold on. No, I was kidding. Oh, that's interesting. Your bit of happiness today is to stare at your favorite color.
All right. Well, my favorite color happens to be the color of money, so I'm cool with that. Let's
Yes.
do it.
So stare at it. But here's my twist. Stare at the color with no clothes on and see what happens. See what happens. That's my twist. And again, permission to play. So give yourself permission to play. That really is your absolute best homework that you have for the rest of the week.
That's awesome. And because I've never seen green without clothes on, it'll be interesting and new.
Yes, I think it'll be very new.
Awesome. Brooklyn, you are amazing. I'm so glad that you did this, and even if you were a bit of a diva, it's all good. You're busy. You're busy. We get it. Okay. So thank you so much for showing up and for being here with us in so many different ways with your wisdom and your knowledge and your energy and your humor and all the things that you brought to the table. Your impression, awesome. So thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. All of you who watched us live and all of you who are watching the rewatch. I always use the wrong terminology. It hit us on the replay. Like I've never been in a pyramid scheme. I mean, a multi-level marketing thing. So I don't know what the correct terminology is here. I probably just offended all of Facebook. But the replay, I don't know. But if you're watching this and we're not actually here anymore because it's not 1920 or whatever you said it was, then please leave your comments still, and we will circle back and engage with those. So thank you all so much, Brooklyn. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And catch us in 2 weeks when we're gonna have another really special topic coming up 2 weeks from now. Just trust me, it's gonna be special.